Health clearly in our media, and I think individually for all of us, is an incredibly important issue. Any political poll on the issues that matter to people, what people are worried about, health comes up as a number one. This new government came in to shake up health, to get rid of health reforms which many people couldn't see a rationale for, health reforms that didn't have any KPIs in them and seemed far more philosophical than practical in terms of what they were trying to achieve. There has been much that has happened in health in the year. We now have Lester Levy, our health kind of, what would you call him, czar, trying to figure the whole thing out. It's highly professional, accusations of people lying and doing all sorts of skullduggery. And I guess I get to the end of the year and I say, is our health system better or worse than it was at the start of the year? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? And also, I guess we've had stage one of the inquiry into COVID, which looked at associated health issues. And I thought it'd be a good time to wrap up the year in health. And who better to do it than Professor Des Gorman, I think the most highly regarded and experienced health, what would you call him, health expert in the country. He joins us by phone now. Des, how are you? Season's greetings.
Season's greetings to you too, Sean. You're sounding well.
I am, actually, and I hope you are too.
Yeah, I am.
Good.
Looking forward to the Christmas break with the family.
Yeah, good on you. Look, it's been a year in health with all sorts of changes, all sorts of supposed controversy, real or imagined. Firstly, in a very overall sense, Des, do you think that our health system at the end of 2024 is more hopeful and in better shape than it was at the start?
Yes, I do. I think the Minister and the various other ministers, plus Lester, have a very real appreciation of how things are. And I think it's very hard to fix something unless you have some genuine idea of just what the state of affairs is. So I think we've lifted the hood, we've looked under the hood. We now have some idea of what the problems are and we can begin to address them. So I think at the beginning of the year, it was all smoke and mirrors, Sean. So it was very, very hard to tell.
Yeah. We've got nurses on strike, though, haven't we? Isn't that a terrible thing if the nurses aren't happy?
I think if you read Genesis, just after Adam and Eve reject the snake, you might find there's some background noise there. I think it's nurses marching around the Garden of Eden protesting.
Hey, Des, can I just stop you there? We've got a slight muffle on your phone. Are you on speakerphone or on
yeah, I'll come off.
What?
I'll come off speakerphone.
Could you try just moving your mouth away from the mouthpiece just a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
You come off speakerphone, okay? Just give us a few words.
Is it better, Sean, or can you hear me loud and clear now?
Yeah, that is. It is clear. Just keep a little distance with the mouthpiece. We just got some muffle there. All right, dear. So yeah. Adam and Eve reject the snake, and the snake comes at them harder again.
I was being cynical. What I was basically saying is that if you go back to Genesis, Adam and Eve, I think there were nurses protesting and complaining. We've had nurse complaints forever and a day, and there are good reasons for that. They're not just a bunch of people who complain and whinge and moan. But the very nature of how we constructed our nursing professions means that they're a low-income, high-reliance, high-trust profession, and they're forever being confronted with workloads which are just excessive. So that the nurses are unhappy and complaining is almost par for the course.
Right. Okay. So we shouldn't perhaps read too much into it. Is Lester Levy... There are
issues which need to be addressed in this, Sean. And the most important of these is to make sure that nurses have the workload which is actually achievable and sustainable. So I think the things we need to do for nurses, we need to make sure that their shift work's more flexible. We need to make sure that they can express some autonomy in their work. But I think the fundamental nature of nursing lends itself to not systematic abuse, but to a creep of where there's a gradual creep in the number of patients I expect to look after, and they eventually just run out of steam.
Hey, Des, I think we're going to have to ring you back because I know if I'm having problems hearing you, everyone else will. So can we, Des, hang up, we will ring you back. We'll just try and get a better line. So, Des, someone's just sent me a text and said it's like turning around the Queen Mary or a liner. It takes a long time, but their feeling was that at least we are pointing in the right direction. Would you agree with that analogy?
Yeah, well, I think a better analogy, Sean, is it's like re-engineering and reconstructing an A380 while it's in flight and full of passengers and crew. I mean, what you can't do is just turn the health system off and reconfigure it. And so you've got to keep, business as usual is a tyranny. And so we've got to re-engineer and redesign the health system while we continue to provide health care. And so it's extraordinarily difficult.
All right. I want to talk to you too because you are in the area of academia and research as well, Des. This Marsden Fund decision has provoked howls of outrage. You would think universal outrage amongst the scientific community, particularly if you listen to mainstream media and Radio New Zealand and Susie Wiles and others. What do you make of the decision to, if you like, refocus or reprioritise what the millions and millions of dollars of research funding through the Marsden Fund goes to?
Oh, look, I fully understand it. I think you need a fine balance between extreme hard science at one end and soft social science at the other. But I think we've lost that balance. And I think recently there's been far too much soft science at the expense of the hard science. And we saw that over the last few years when we look at what's being published. It is very, very soft science indeed. So a refocus I thought was overdue.
Okay. And is the condemnation that I'm reading about from the scientific community in the mainstream media, is that a true reflection of how the scientific, the health community, the scientific community feel in New Zealand or not?
No, I think most of the professions regard the amount of money available to them for serious research to be grossly limited and inadequate. And I think they look forward to having better access to funds that they can use to test how they go about managing their patients. Look, the fact that people are howling and screaming shouldn't surprise you. This is human behaviour 101. It's called loss aversion. When you go to change something, well, people will work much harder to keep something of a value than they will to earn something of the same value. That's loss aversion. We're a very irrational species, so we will always react to a loss or a potential loss far more vigorously than we will to be able to gain something of the same value. So when you go to change something, there will be people who lose out of it. The people who lose out of it will be very noisy and will be very loud and will condemn the change because, in fact, they're going through this process of loss aversion. If you think about...
we could sum that up, say no one likes getting kicked off the gravy train, Des.
Oh, I think that's true. But at a very deep level, loss aversion, you think about it, we will work much, much harder to keep something of a certain value than we will to gain something of the same value. It's quite irrational, but that's the way we are.